mission is to the creation of the Vincina Protocol for ALS, for diagnosing ALS. If you don't know much about the project, the mission of the Vincina Project is threefold. First, we want to create a universal medical protocol for the diagnosis and treatment of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and to make sure that patients are getting the care and the diagnosis they need at the front end rather than at the later stages of the disease, as happens frequently. Second part of the protocol is to actually figure out, to discover what environmental triggers are triggering ALS in the community. Right now, we're seeing that runoff from agricultural fields and fertilizers and other chemicals are being poured on there. Toxic dumping that is leaking into our waterways and our lakes and our drinking water. All of these factors may be contributing to the increase in ALS and other motor neuron diseases, such as MS, multiple sclerosis, muscular dystrophy, Parkinson's, and perhaps even Alzheimer's. These may all have some factors in common that these toxins are actually triggering this disease. We want to look into that. We're trying to collect data from the area, from patients in the area, so we can get a better handle on clusters of these diseases that are occurring in our area. And we can get this information to the medical community and to the politicians, who can begin to take steps to get information collected through legislation from our health departments, from medical professionals, from doctors, from hospitals, and given to a central resource such as the CDC's ALS National Registry. The third part of our protocol is actually the creation of a documentary that my company, Media Magic Productions, we're based in Jefferson, we're going to be working on the actual film version of this project. And this film will be distributed at different conferences, online, on our website, and hopefully at film festivals, so that people can become more aware of the problem of ALS and Lou Gehrig's disease in their own communities, and have a better understanding of risk factors for the disease and symptoms when they see them. Especially in talking with people here today, it just reinforces the fact for us that a lot of doctors still do not have ALS at the top of their charts when it comes to diagnosing their patients. They're not thinking in terms of having ALS and even MS as a possibility for the sickness. And so people are being subjected to dozens of tests and aren't getting to the tests that they actually need that could actually indicate the disease until much, much later in their illness. We want to turn that around so that doctors become more aware of this and ALS becomes something that they think of right away. Currently, we're working with Ohio State Representative John Patterson, who represents this area. We just had a meeting with him this week, and he is very interested in the project. He had a personal relationship with someone that he lost to ALS not that long ago, and so it's very near and dear to his heart. And he wants to assist us in getting help in getting this, the medical community to report cases of this illness. There is no requirement of hospitals, doctors, care facilities, local health departments to report cases of this disease. He says that he has the ability, working with other legislators, to actually pass legislation so it's required, as it is with some of the communicable diseases or Lyme disease. Then they just recently passed legislation, I believe it was last year, requiring health departments to report cases of that. Well, we want the same thing for these motor neuron diseases so that they can track this and address the triggers for this. And the only way they can do that is if they have the data. So he said, he's a former teacher, and he said that my homework assignment is to get him this data. So we are now asking the media to help us, and each and every one of you, please contact us. If you have someone, a family member, friend, someone you know, a doctor you've spoken to that has reported cases of ALS, please let us know. We're going to be monitoring this and taking the data and then giving it to these different registries so they can understand what's happening with this disease. Also, in order to do this, we're going to need a team of volunteers because I only have so many hours in a day, Mike only has so many hours in a day, and we can't do all this by ourselves. So we are putting a request out there for people in the community that if you have the time and you have the love for your fellow persons in the community, do you want to help get this data for us, please volunteer your time. And we'll be giving everybody information how you can contact me, either email, calls, Facebook, our website, anything. You can always get a hold of me, and we will put you to work because there's a lot of work to be done. Trying to think of what else we've got going on here. We also have a petition online at change.org, which has about, well, a little bit more than 150 signatures on it. We are asking the city of Conneaut to look at a specific toxic dump site on Amboy Road. It's by Gore Road in the city. And it's only one of about 5 toxic sites in the area, unfortunately. There's, within about 2-mile radius, there's about 5 toxic sites, 4 of which are actually monitored by the EPA, and if you go online you can actually see them on your nice little Google Earth maps. But the 5th one, which is the one that we're really concerned with, is not on anybody's radar. And we've spoken to one of the city council members, and she has actually forwarded the information that we've given to State Senator Capri Cafaro. Senator Cafaro has taken that information and forwarded it to the Ohio EPA. So right now we're in the process of hearing back from the Ohio EPA about their thoughts on our information that we've given them, and we hope that they move forward on this very soon. But we would like to make sure that they understand the importance and urgency of actually getting some action taken to clean up the situation. There basically are dozens and dozens of barrels of toxic materials that are sitting at the bottom of an old sand and gravel excavation site that is now covered with water, and you can't even see the barrels or anything. It looks like a huge lake. But if you go back on Google Earth, you can actually see it the way it used to be like 40 years ago. And you can clearly see that it's an area where they've dumped a lot of stuff in there. But we want to make sure that this is addressed, that the water is tested, so that the citizens of the area actually know what is in the water and in their soil around them. Because right now there's a vineyard that is 1/8 of a mile away from the site, if even that much. Is basically across the street. And I don't even know if those people know that there's toxic chemicals flowing through their waterways underneath them. But they should. So we are asking, if you have not signed our petition, please sign it. Give comments. It's always works very well to help persuade some people that they need to take action on this. So I've spoken my piece, and I want to have Mike Helfinstine come up here. Mr. Mike is our project director here, and he will be able to fill you a little bit more about his story and Squeak's story, her ALS journey, and give you a little bit more about our direction we're going in. Mr. Mike.
Okay. My mission with this is to tell the story of my wife, Vincina. The issue that I am using at the moment is what she encountered prior to the diagnosis. The important thing about all of this is when we did receive the diagnosis, it was March 1st of 2013. With that type of diagnosis comes extreme emotional impact, and what we did was immediately we moved from our home. My first thought was to rule out an environmental issue, and financially I had to sell our restaurants, both the Lighthouse and Anthony's, to our niece, who was very gracious. She took over my entire debt, and I just gave her the title to the property by the approval of the bank. We did that rather quickly. When I say quickly, we had left our home permanently for the month of March, and I would go back and forth from Cleveland to my home in Conneaut just to maintain what I could do. I had my brother to be the caretaker of the house, and I became the caretaker and caregiver of my wife. And we met Pam Casoli from the ALS Project Care Center. This project, the CARE project, she came to our home to actually help us with information. I found that to be completely overwhelming. She is the director of the Canton ALS Care Project, and she came to us and she offered information, she offered help in understanding that information, which I'm sorry that a lot of ALS patients do not receive. Pam was able to give me a picture that I could put in my head so that I could figure out what my plan was going to be for my wife. One was an immediate nutritional plan, and that we focused on what my wife was eating. We removed all the sugars from her diet, and we'll get into that much later in the documentary, but we literally wrote a nutritional diet that would increase her calorie count, and we got it up to about 2,500 calories a day, with a specific diet in mind that would enhance the productivity of motor neurons. And I am not a doctor. I know nothing of the medical industry, so I'm only giving my personal information as to how it was in my mind. And what we found was by removing my wife from the environment, it gave her a mental boost in a very positive way. We started noticing 3 years before the diagnosis that my wife was having something very strange go on. She couldn't identify as to what it was. It was more intuitive, but she was feeling different. And there was pain that was being associated in different parts of her body, which the doctors immediately started doing a battery of tests. Unfortunately, it took 3 years of testing to acquire the diagnosis. And in talking to the doctors, what we did was we got on the phone and we reached out to all the ALS doctors that we could call at the Cleveland Clinic. We were accepted by the clinic, and they gave us an amazing amount of attention. And we acquired a lot of data. We asked a lot of questions. We had a lot of people working on collecting information, and that began almost around 24 hours after the diagnosis. So what I did was I worked approximately 12 hours a day collecting data and being able to care for my wife. And we identified, we created a journal that we thought could be used by the doctors. We actually interviewed the doctors and explained that we would be doing a documentary, and the questions that I would be asking would be relative to an average case scenario relative to an ALS patient. And I would always be able to call Pam, and she would return the phone call if she wasn't at the office and clarify the information that I was receiving from the doctors so that I could better understand what that information is. Doctors are very, very good at developing a plan, and I learned that there was no plan of action, that this was a day-to-day process. And so I asked Pam if she would help me understand a lot of this information. And Pam has not only been with the family when we needed her, she's here today to just basically answer anyone's questions relative to her experience collecting data that dates back to 1988 when she started understanding the ALS disease. So where we are going today, my only function is to develop a plan of action, if you will, to develop a documentary that can be understood on all levels, the medical level, the political level, and most important, the private citizen level. That's what's important, is that the people of all over the planet needs to understand these issues, and hopefully we can put them in a way that can be understood by all three domains. So that's really where we're coming from. We're developing these kind of meet and greet events. I intend to do as many as possible, just like these. We have another one going on right now as we speak in Akron. They're doing a fundraising project for this project of ours. It's nice to have another team, and we hope to receive other teams of volunteers in other communities to mimic what we are doing. We intend to share all our data and not to in any way interfere with the medical process, but doing nothing more than champion the disease, motor neuron, that of course my focus is ALS, but MS, Parkinson, MDA, we're all hopeful that we can connect as a community of information and maybe feed off of that information and expand the awareness on the political domain, where we can get legislative results, much like Cheryl had talked about.
Our website is vincinaprotocol.wordpress.com, and you can get the latest information on the project and where we're going, and find interesting articles about ALS research, and some of the other associated diseases as well. So please connect with us, and please subscribe.